Ladies and gentlemen, after 5 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. Decision scores it 48-47, Jemiah. Salvador Arnold scores it 48-47, Strickland. And Eric Rose scores the contest 48-47 for the winner by split decision.
Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Vegas 117, headlined by Arnold Allen and Melquizael Costa. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, last weekend did not pan out. Our top play was on Tatsuro Taira, and I love that play. I really thought that Taira was able to get those takedowns, work from top position, threaten submissions, have some good striking, but he had his hands down for a lot of the fight here. Although it was 2-2 going to that 5th round, you know, you can't stop that fight there. I'm not going to lie, you can't stop that fight there. You know, although he was battered, it was definitely going Joshua Van's way in that 5th round, but you cannot stop that fight, that type of back and forth war in a title fight in the 5th round. They stop it. Didn't like that, but not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. I mean, that there was definitely not going Taira's way. But with that being said, we are going to be dominating this coming Saturday. Back to our winning ways. We have been cashing in. We are on 4 of the last 6 weeks. We have cashed. We have on an 18-8 run. That's about 70% win rate that we've been on there, and we've been rocking and rolling. We had a little speed bump last weekend, so let's get back to those winning ways. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Arnold Allen and Melquizael Costa. Now we got Allen sitting at -180 in the comeback here, Costa +140. Now you got Allen, who is a well-rounded fighter with some pretty solid striking. This is a guy that does have some power, that wants to, have that forward pressure, get inside the pocket, exchange, throw heavy, and look to throw those big shots. He does have some wrestling in his back pocket if he does need it. Now you've got Costa on their side here, who is also very well-rounded, but has really a high-level submission game and very good on the ground. This is a guy that really can win anywhere, and that's something I do like about him, is that, he can win by decisions. He can knock out opponents. He can also, be a good minute winner and win minutes, win rounds. And, you look at his career, 9 KO wins, 8 submissions, 9 by decision. So again, across the board, he's evenly finding ways to get a victory. Now, he does have some power here, and he also has a very versatile striking arsenal here. We are seeing that he does have really solid kicking game, good head kicks. He was able to knock out Morgan Charrier, which was a 5% winner for us at the end of last year. Great win for us there. And, he's been able to even chop at the legs, mix it up. And that's something that I think is going to be very difficult there for Allen to deal with. And also, though, I do like the fact that at this point now we're seeing Costa really peaking. Really starting to hit his stride, building momentum. 6-0 run has looked very good and really elevating fight after fight. Now, Allen has been on a tough run here, 1-3 out of his last 4, and there's no doubt he has faced the top of the top when you're talking about, the level of competition here. Max Holloway, Movsar Evloev, Gene Silva. I mean, these guys are fighting for titles. Former champion, will be fighting for a title soon. I mean, this is definitely a top-notch guy. But you kind of look at that, and what I think the issue is for me is that, I feel like the line here and the market here is really overvaluing his losses, but not really looking at the wins. And, just the fact that he's lost to high-level guys, I think is why he is at a -180 here. And even his wins are not that impressive. I mean, Giga Chikadze, who's 37 years old, is on a 1-4 run. Calvin Kattar blew out his knee in the 2nd round, and he's on a 1-6 run. Dan Hooker, which, everyone knew that Dan Hooker had a horrible weight cut, looked absolutely drained on the scale, looked horrible coming into the cage. He looked terrible. He was knocked out early in that 1st round, and, that's not the greatest win there. And then you also Sadiq Youssef, who a lot of people think is not the greatest fighter and has some holes in his game. But even that, yes, he beat Sadiq Youssef, but Sadiq still outlanded Allen all 3 rounds in that fight. It was 47-21 on significant strikes, total significant strikes there, yet they did give the decision to Allen. That's when there was a very, very close fight. And really, Allen has one win over the last, 3.5 years. And that's not the greatest look for me overall, because I think Costa is the more dangerous striker between these two. 3 of his last 5 victories do come inside the very first round here. And again, knocked out Morgan Charrier, knocked out Dan Hooker. These are really big wins and showing some power, showing his finishing ability, because even both those guys have never been never been knocked out in their career. And he goes out and back-to-back knocks out these guys. He's showing a lot of ability at this point in his career, while Allen really has been kind of a decision machine a little bit here. 8 of his last 10 fights have gone to the scorecards here. And he is a guy that, I think that, he's got some power. Yeah, all those things. He does not have the finishing upside here that Costa does have. And that's a big X factor coming into this fight. Costa has, good volume, good striking defense. I believe he can dictate where this fight goes if he wants to take it to the ground. I think he does have the wrestling to get this to the ground. And Allen, as I said earlier, he does have the wrestling, but he doesn't wrestle. We just see him. He just simply does not wrestle. He has 1 takedown attempt over his last 6 fights. And that takedown attempt, he missed. So he's 0 for 1 on takedowns over his last 6 fights. I think that's not a great look overall here. I think Costa's the one who can mix in the takedowns. He's the better grappler. He's got the submission upside here, the finishing upside here. And, even if Allen does look for takedowns, I favor Costa on the ground. I think Costa's grappling is much better. So I think he can win this fight anywhere this fight goes here. He can win the minutes. He can get the knockout. He can look for submissions here. So at this price tag of plus 140, give me Melquizael Costa to get the job done in the main event. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Malcolm Wellmaker. He is minus 278 in the comeback here. We've got Juan Diaz. He is plus 225. Now, you've got Wellmaker here who's coming off a recent loss to Ethan Ewing, which was a fight where, Ethan coming in, short notice, Malcolm, Wellmaker really having a lot of hype around him, a lot of knockouts. He was a minus 410 coming into that fight there. And it was a very competitive fight, very, very close fight. Now we're really seeing that, Ethan Ewing is a really good fighter and really has an ability to be, a top guy in the division. And, Ethan Ewing outlanded him 85-77, had 3 takedowns, which probably edged it out, but was a very close fight. Early was really Malcolm, and then he kind of slowed down as that fight went on. But the thing for me here is that, that was, Wellmaker's first loss. That was, and a lot of times fighters who are undefeated haven't really, aren't fixing the holes. They're knocking everybody out. They're almost looking for, the big knockout finish, the highlight finish, the bonuses, and they're not fighting optimally. And I think that's something that really Wellmaker can build off of. He can really, fill in the holes, fix some things, fine-tune some things, because he's got raw power, raw talent, and I think he's only going to be getting better. Now, also, Wellmaker is, going to have the faster hands and going to be the harder hitter between these two, and I think he's the more dangerous guy. And you've got, out of 4 of his last 5 wins are by knockout. He's 3-1 in the UFC, all obviously come by knockout, and he's very explosive early. And that's where I think that he can find success here. Maybe a knockout here early, landing the big shot. He's got quick combinations. He's explosive, good stance switching, works his angles, and he hunts for those finishes. And that's what I think Wellmaker can do in this fight. And Diaz on their side here, I think, he's very similar to Ethan's style. He's a pressure boxer who's going to come forward, who's going to mix in takedowns and be very durable. But that's really where the similarities end, because really, Juan Diaz is far below caliber fighter of Ethan Ewing. And I think it kind of favors Wellmaker here because he's able to fight the same style he just fought, and it was a better version, the prior fight. Now he's fighting the same style, but it's a weaker version. I think that's what he can really capitalize on. And you also look at, Diaz, he is coming off, a spinning elbow victory on Dana White's Contender Series, which is the thing that's going to really get the highlights and wow, what a big knockout. But Juan, who he beat on Dana White's Contender Series, was landing, and I'm not really high on Juan. He's a guy that, kind of wooden on the feet. I think that he does, leaves his head on the center line to be hit. And that's kind of what happened to him there. And it was very competitive up until the knockout. And I think that if Wellmaker is landing at that clip, and he's finding shots, the KO, I think, does happen in this spot. And I think also you look at Diaz, can there be takedowns? I don't think so. I think this is going to play out on the feet. I think Wellmaker can defend the takedowns, work in space. And if this fight does play out on the feet, he has a massive advantage, I believe, in the striking, in the power. Diaz, I think, has slower developing combinations, very limited, very basic, doesn't really, I think, impress me in any real way. And again, the striking is so basic. I think the counter striking of Wellmaker is going to land that big shot here. And, this is a spot, I think the kill shot happens. I think this is a great bounce back spot here for Wellmaker. So getting off the -278 number, I do like Wellmaker by knockout, which is seen around +140. It's going to be Wellmaker by knockout +140 to get the job done. And the next one here we're going to talk about is Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She is -178 in the comeback here. We have Ketlen Vieira. She is +138. Now, Cavalcanti is a light-footed striker, good at range, going to push the volume out, pushes out, good striking, and she has those things on the feet with the faster developing combinations. But you look at Ketlen Vieira here, and really what she relies on is her physicality. She's going to kind of bully her opponents, push you up against the fence, look for takedowns, crash the pocket, wants to grind out rounds, grind out positional, and that's where she has found success. And she's winning positionally when she does find success. And I think also being in the apex cage could help her and her style overall. But there's no doubt, that Cavalcanti is going to be the better striker. There's just no doubt about it that she's going to be able to better striker. But this is a step up in competition for her. Now, she is 5-0 in the UFC. She does have 2 split decision victories that I thought were a little bit of red flags when you're looking at it. Josiane Nunes, who I'm not high on, who's undersized for the division, got to a split decision with her, but is on an 0-3 run. You got Nora Cannoli, who's on a 1-4 run, another split decision victory for Cavalcanti. I thought that's not the greatest showing for her. While we've got Ketlen, who has absolutely faced the higher level competition, over the last few years, Norma Dumont, Raquel Pennington, Kayla Harrison, say what you will about Macy Chiasson, but she's probably better than most of the fighters that even Cavalcanti has faced. Also, you got to add in that Cavalcanti fights to very short margins, very close margins. She just lands enough just to kind of edge out the round, just kind of, pitter-pattering the shots, working back at space, pitter-pattering the shots, just landing enough. And, it's tough for her to really, again, separate herself and really put a stamp on a round where I think, the path to victory here, absolutely for Ketlen, is going to be crashing the pocket, looking for takedowns, pushing you up against the fence, winning positionally, and grinding. And I don't think that Cavalcanti is going to like that. I think she's going to struggle. I think she's going to be on the back foot. I think the physicality of Ketlen is going to be overwhelming for her. And if she gets her on the ground, Ketlen is far better on the ground here. And I think the experience level here, all of those things, I think really are in the favor of Ketlen. And now you're looking at, her wrestling. She has that as well. And now you see the plus money number next to her here. I think this line is wide here. I do like Ketlen here. Give me another plus money winner here. Ketlen Vieira +138. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Louis Gurule. He is -110 on the comeback here. We have Daniel Barez. He is also -110. Now, since both these guys have been signed to the UFC, they've both been on a rough run. Now, you had Gurule here, who came into the UFC, had a little bit of hype behind him, was undefeated, now 0-3 run in the UFC. You've got Barez, who was 1-2 in the UFC and was finished in both of his losses. Now, Saturday is probably one of those win and go home type of matchups here, where the loser probably cut from the organization. So although these guys are below par, UFC fighter, caliber fighter, this is still a huge fight for both these guys career-wise. Now, you look at Barez here, he definitely is a guy who's an explosive fighter, but he can slow down, and he's going to be aggressive early. He's going to come forward. He's going to try to bully his opponent. He's going to be throwing big-time shots, swinging hard, looking for those takedowns, but he's just not economical with his cardio. That is a big issue for him here. If he can't, the knockout or the submission or whatever it is does not materialize, that finish does not materialize early, he is going to fall off a cliff. He's going to get sloppy. He's going to start to slow down. And at 37 years old in the flyweight division, that's an issue where that's old for the flyweight division. And, the weight cuts start to, be taxing, starts to drain your explosiveness, starts to drain your cardio even more, your durability. All those things can really start to fall down very, very quickly here. And already we do know that Barez has terrible cardio. So again, as he continues to age, all those things are no doubt going to get worse. While Gurule isn't as technical, as Barez, he's going to be a little bit more on the technical side of things. He's got the better gas tank. And that, I think, is where this fight can be won for Gurule. And I think he really needs to weaponize that cardio, really to be aggressive, really force the takedowns. He can fuel these repetitive takedowns overall here in the path to victory, pressure wrestle, and, force Barez to work. Even if he doesn't get the takedowns, attempt it, make him work, make him scramble, make him defend, repeatedly push him up against the fence, make him work. And as this fight continues, second round, third round, I do believe that's where you're going to see opportunities for Gurule to really get his offense going, really get the wrestling going, and really start to smother any of the offense that Barez has outside of that first round. Barez does slow down, and I think this style matchup for Gurule is really going to work out well for him. And, Barez has never been knocked out, but he has been submitted 4 times in his professional career, 2 times in the UFC. Jafel Thilo got a takedown, submitted him in the first round. You have Andre Lima absolutely dominated that fight. 108 significant strikes to 33, 2 takedowns, 5 minutes of control time, and then submitted in the third round. Now Gurule does not have that submission game. He definitely does not have the jiu-jitsu side of things, but he does have the wrestling. He does have the path to victory. He does have physicality, and he does have the cardio. And I think that can be enough here. He's the younger guy with the physicality, better cardio. I think that, in the Apex cage, I think is absolutely going to be helping Gurule here. So give me Louis Gurule to get the job done. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Vegas 117. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, we have no UFC next weekend, so we have a week off. I will be in Atlantic City for a couple days, but with that being said, we'll be right back at it. We're gonna be back to our winning ways this Saturday. So if you want to become a client, link down below, and we'll see you soon. And let's cash.